Welcome back to practice here at One Jets Drive for another edition of Training Camp Live presented by Honda. Ethan Greenberg, Eric Allen, and Eric McMillan batting leadoff here on set on the hottest day of training camp so far for the green and white. Let's set the stage here for a minute. This is technically the green and white scrimmage, I guess you would say. Robert Saleh talked about it yesterday. We're going to get into what you can expect if you're watching this. If you're at practice and you're watching, if you're in the stands, we're about to tell you in a couple minutes what you can expect from today's practice. But we got to bring in Eric McMillan.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks. I feel like you brought the heat. You know, you're bringing this temperature. What's up with that?
Yeah, I'm coming out of the South, coming from hot Atlanta, Georgia, and yeah, it is pretty hot. It's pretty hot there. Humidity, there's no breeze, but there's a breeze here. So I really can't even call this hot.
Okay, well, you are wearing pants, which is a bold choice.
Yeah. This is good weather. This is good football weather. We can work with this.
EMAC, we're watching one of the most prolific quarterbacks in the history of the National Football League at work right now, Aaron Rodgers. But as far as our show is concerned, we've had a lot of receivers on set, whether it be Quincy Enunwa, who's a mainstay, or Lavernius Coles, or Wayne Corbett.
Mm-hmm. Braylon Edwards?
Braylon Edwards as well, but we needed a ball hawk up here, a guy on the other side of the coin, on the secondary. 22 interceptions first 5 seasons with the Jets. 5 of them returned for touchdowns.
Yes, sir. I mean, my MO has always been, you know, after you catch a ball, you know, you need to score. B, you got to bring additional value, you know, to your team in what you're doing. I knew how to find the ball and read quarterbacks, read pass routes, and get to the reception point. You know, for me, that was the easy part when I had a chance to study film. But to add an extra value, you know, really to the older guys that I played with, because I was a rookie when I played, and there was a lot of veterans in the huddle. Yep. You know, they kind of looked at me like, well, we got all these rookies in our secondary playing the back end, and I wanted to let them know that, hey, I'm for real, I'm the real deal. You know, that's my confidence factor, and I'm going to show you better than tell you. So, and that's the way all our DBs played because we talked about it.
So I want to get well, first of all, I want to get your opinion on this guy in a minute here, number 5, Garrett Wilson. I just said it's hot outside. The chemistry between 5 and 8, it's been scorching hot. So much so that yesterday on a long pass in the move the ball period, Aaron Rodgers, 31-yard completion, touchdown to that guy right there, and a little bit of a celebration. I think we have the photo of the celebration that if you haven't seen it, I'm curious, EMAC, your reaction. Look at this. 74, Olu Fashanu and Garrett Wilson celebrating after the long time. This is after the long touchdown, right?
It certainly was. That move the ball situation was the score was 30-23. Offense has the ball. They got to get in the end zone in 45 seconds. While it took Aaron Rodgers a couple plays to move down the field, and that drive culminates on a beauty from Rodgers to Garrett Wilson.
Look how high in the air he is, EMAC.
You know, what I'm thinking about when I look at this picture for the first time, I'm looking at this saying, that's kind of an iconic picture because he looks like a jet that's flying in the air. He's actually getting it done. He's traveling. He's traveling past the goal line. He's making moves. The team is moving. You know, that's what that shows me, and I think that's an iconic picture, and it should be used a lot throughout the season, maybe in a cartoon character fashion, maybe a sketch. I mean, that's pretty tight right there. I like that.
I agree. I do think that is an iconic image. And actually, I don't know which one of our photographers
took it.
Yeah,
me neither.
Whether it was Sarah or Shari or Dan, those guys are tremendous. And this is an image I think we're going to continue to come back to throughout camp and maybe even to the regular season. This is what it's all about. You got a first-round pick, Olu Fashanu, and a star receiver celebrating, getting into the end zone.
And a former first-round pick at that. And so, EMAC, with a guy like Garrett Wilson, just watching him over his young career, as someone who EA just said, you had a lot of success when you played in the secondary. How do you go about lining up against a guy like Garrett Wilson who's so shifty and explosive, and then you factor in the chemistry with Aaron Rodgers where DJ Reed has been saying stuff like they'll just show up to the line of scrimmage, do a little signal, maybe even a little nonverbal communication, and they're doing something on the fly. How hard is that to stop?
When you play against your teammates in practice, it's extremely difficult because a couple of reasons. One, your teammates know you. Okay, they know your athletic abilities. They practice against you every day. Number two, they know your defense from the offensive perspective. They know what you're supposed to be doing. Number three, they know exactly how many yards they can run their route to sit in between a double coverage. So there's a lot of factors that that come into having success like that. And the offense, from the offensive perspective, they can really study that on their opponents as well. But from the defensive perspective, you got to take a few chances. But I took a lot of chances, and as long as you win at those opportunities, nobody's going to, the coach ain't going to say anything. Okay? But if you lose, then, we are playing for jobs.
Yeah.
And this is serious. So
Eric McMillan, a gambler who had 8 interceptions his rookie season, 6 interceptions his second season. How much of the game on the outside, if you're playing defensive back against Aaron Rodgers, are you playing the coverage, the receiver, and how much are you paying attention to the quarterback? Because in this case, this is one of the best who's ever done it.
First of all, I'm playing the coverage. I got to be where I'm supposed to be before I decide to take any kind of chances. Second thing, I got to play against Aaron Rodgers' mental capacity. It's my mind against his mind. If I'm going to take a chance, I better be darn sure exactly what he's going to do, what is he shown his options are, for an audible call. And, sometimes we can pick up signals, sometimes you can't pick up signals. But first thing is to be where I'm supposed to be so I can hold the accountability, so my teammates can hold me accountable for my job and I can keep my job. You definitely got to read the pass routes, and you definitely got to, be where you're supposed to be. I've said that probably 3 times, through this conversation.
But you're a coach. Of course you're going to say that.
Well, I mean, I was a player too.
Yep.
So, and I've had coaches who would tell you, if you not where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, you will be on the next flight out.
Yes.
Bud Carson, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the most remarkable statistic of all in regard to Rodgers is that his touchdown to interception ratio, #1 in NFL history. So people think of Aaron as a gunslinger, but he's protected the football throughout his career.
Yeah, he has. He's thrown some passes in the last when he was with the Packers, in the last year with the Packers, and I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan, but he threw some passes, before he left there. He shouldn't have thrown them, and I was like, dude, why would you do that, kind of thing. But yeah, he's the bomb, man. I've always loved Mr. Rodgers, and he is very accurate. He's very knowledgeable. He's a great quarterback. He's not an average dude. He is the superior creme de la creme.
I love it. From a veteran perspective, how would you treat this practice specifically? And then also flip the script and talk about what a rookie's thinking about here, because we're about a week and a half into training camp, and you're going to have some scrimmage-like situations. So I think it's a nice kind of break for the players from the traditional practice they've been doing.
Well, once again, it's a sport, this is an athletic game, but once again, this is a job. They're playing for jobs. They're playing for security. You're going out there as a veteran thinking about, at least most of us were thinking about, I'm not sure about these guys now, but I'm sure they're probably more so than I am, or I was. They're thinking about how many plays can I play without making any mistakes? Can I make the tackle when I'm supposed to make the tackle? Am I in the right spot when I'm supposed to be there as a DB? Am I making the right calls and getting us in a better situation than what the call dictated? Can we play together? Am I playing with people who are confident, and can they execute their assignment? Can I depend on them? Because when you have, at least in the secondary, well, probably on D-line too and linebackers, when you have a teammate that's kind of the weak link, really hadn't mastered his position, there's mistakes that's going to be made, and then you tend to try to cover up his mistake by providing a little extra help, you know, a little extra coverage on this side, or, you know, maybe checking this gap before you check yours, and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Handle your own business.
Yeah,
exactly.
So, you know, since this is a scrimmage, you really, you know, from the young perspective, hey, I'm just out here to do my job. I'm not worried about anybody else. I got to do what I'm supposed to do. I need to catch every pass. I need to not fumble when I run the ball. I need to make this block. I need to make sure that defensive end goes outside and not loop underneath the inside to destroy the play. Defensive back, I need to pick off any pass I can pick off. I need to knock down every pass that comes my way. I need to be effective.
I wanted to ask you about the atmosphere out here. And when you look at the landscape, we've come a long way since those days back in Long Island. What do you think about what you see out here today in the crowd coming in?
Well, what I see is a much larger crowd than what was out in Long Island for any given practice. Number two, they got a roof over their head. They got a little bit of shade. Number three, they got somewhere to sit. I believe, I'm not certain, but I think they might have concession stands somewhere, water for them to drink or anything like that. I mean, you know,
we got to help them out.
Yeah, Long Island, you know, everybody would bring a cooler and just kind of post up by the fence and just, you know, try to get as much shade as they can get. You know, this is a great, great atmosphere, man. It is aesthetically beautiful facility, grandstands, all over the place, front, right, left, and center. I mean, this is awesome, man. This is awesome.
It's great. And we talked about it before. This is going to be a scrimmage. It's going to be a mock game. We'll talk about what that looks like in a bit. But the offense and defense, don't forget about special teams. The Jets had a little shakeup at the return position. For more on that, let's hear from Caroline Hendershot.
Now, before I get into a little bit of the special teams, there was a lot of complaining about the heat and how hot it was for three gentlemen that are currently standing under a tent while I am baking in the sun. I just want to let everyone be clear on that. But more on special teams. On Thursday, running back Tariq Cohen informed the Jets that he was retiring, and Coach Saleh said he was actually really surprised by this because he thought he was having a great camp and he had plenty of juice left in the tank. So as far as it affects the returning position for the Jets, Saleh's not really worried. He said there's a lot of depth. They have more guys than they have ever had back there, fielding punts and working with the kickoff team. So he's not concerned about that. As far as what it will look like today in the mock scrimmage, we're not sure because Xavier Gibson is dealing with a leg injury. Tariq Cohen retired. So it's going to be a little bit of a surprise of who's back there. But nevertheless, Coach Saleh is not worried, and there's plenty of depth there to go around.
Great stuff, Caroline. Obviously, the special teams factor at kick return, like Caroline just said, got a little bit of a shakeup with the retirement of Tariq Cohen. But the NFL Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan, is back. The New York Jets want to celebrate you and your dedication to the green and white. Submit your nomination at nyjets.com/fan of the year. EA said it earlier that we've had a lot of receivers on the show. Well, this one receiver on set, Quincy Enunwa, he's a staple of our content here. So we welcome him back to Training Camp Live, presented by Honda. And before we get your opinion on what we're going to see here in the scrimmage, just wanted to set the table here. We didn't really talk about it. Robert Saleh said that today's practice is going to consist of two halves. Yeah. It's going to consist of kickoffs, which we haven't seen so far, like in terms of full speed with the new kickoff rules. And then in addition to that, that's what you're seeing, like ones on ones, twos on twos. But here's the kicker in all of this. The NFL officials are here for the first time in training camp.
Okay, so it's really live.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm actually looking forward to the kickoff. So actually, just a little background. I feel like one of the first plays that really kind of got me down the path of my neck injury was kickoff, right? So I think the danger behind it was sometimes you'll put like defensive linemen, right? So you'll have a guy like Michael Clemens out there running full speed to go, and then a running back has to block him or a receiver has to block him. So I like that they're doing this, but I think it's dangerous for the kickoff return team because those guys are crazy players back there. They're probably going to make so many big plays with only having so many, a limited line of defense.
So you anticipate a lot of big plays coming from this new rule this year in 2024?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm out.
Well, I think that
we'll get that figured out with Quincy just for a second. I do want to give fans a little update. Xavier Gibson working out on an adjacent field over here, so hopefully he's back on the field soon, dealing with a leg injury. So the Jets, 2 top returners, I would say, early in training camp would have been Xavier Gibson and Tariq Cohen. So this means more opportunities for a few of those young guys. Greens, two guys that I'm circling, possible returners would be rookies Malachi Corley, also Isaiah Davis.
Yeah, I think Isaiah Davis is an interesting guy. You think about what he did at South Dakota State, and he was someone that
Hello.
We got
sounds
you,
like
Q.
you're back.
Okay.
Q's live.
You know, we'll chalk it up to the heat. You know.
Yeah, definitely. For some reason, it's
Training
it's a little
camp
bit
mode.
of,
That's
you know.
fine. Yeah.
Training camp,
We're
we're
here to
practicing,
we're
baby.
here to get better, one day at a
That's
time,
it.
right? How we do anything is how we do everything. Thank you, Coach Robert Saleh. Picking up where we just left off, Q,
Yes.
with a guy like Isaiah Davis and Malachi Corley. I don't know Corley has the special teams prowess that Isaiah Davis had in college, but both those guys have been taking reps at both kick returner and punt returner, for that matter, with Xavier Gibson battling a lower leg ailment, and then also with the news of Cohen retiring.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I like Malachi Corley. I like what he can do with the ball in his hands. And like I said, you only have one line of defense. So once you break through there, it's just a foot race to the end zone. You know, and I love to see him maybe break 1 or 2 tackles. It's what he's so good at. It's why they just drafted him. So you give him those opportunities. Now you just have to make sure that everybody's rallying behind him as he goes into the end zone.
All right, so I got a little bit of news for you. I talked about Xavier Gibson before. Sauce Gardner back on the practice field today, excused for personal reasons, so he's back on the practice field. The Jets on Friday practiced without 2 of their top players in the secondary, in Sauce Gardner, and Michael Carter is dealing with an ankle injury right now.
Yeah, and yesterday was also a non-padded practice. The Jets were in shells in anticipation for a heavier workload today. When we were seeing Tyron Smith earlier, it looked like that he's in a baseball hat. Not really. He looks like today's going to be a veteran rest day for Tyron Smith, which if Morgan Moses, who returned to team periods yesterday in a limited capacity, that means that your starting 5 right now at full health would include Olu Fashanu at left tackle, and then your starters left guard through right tackle. But it's a good sign to have a guy like Morgan Moses back in the fold, considering this time last year, like the Jets didn't have their starting 5 offensive linemen practice together.
Right.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's Quinnen Williams. Somebody's going to have the assignment of locking him up today. I'm going to be very interested to watch what's happening in the trenches. Quinnen Williams the other day had an interception a couple practices ago, actually in the red zone. Javon Kinlaw explodes through the line, and this came against Aaron Rodgers. But speaking of Rodgers, I think I've counted, as far as my notes are concerned, Greens, 10 touchdowns the last 2 practices.
Is that right? He's been on fire. I mean, look, we talked about it a little bit off the air. When the Jets aren't in shells and the D-line can't really get after it, the offense has looked very good. And I'm not discrediting the offense because they're light years ahead of where they were. And yesterday, they took advantage of no Sauce, no MC2, but they still made the plays. Like, I don't know what that practice would have looked like last year, first year in the system, but you think about not only what A-Rod's been doing, but also the guy next to him. Tyrod Taylor's also been extremely impressive as of late. Feels like he's picking up steam, too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the offense needs as much of a confidence booster after last year, so I like that kind of format right now. The defense needs as much challenge as possible because you don't want them to get complacent, right? You don't want them to feel like they're always winning in defense, in practice, and then when the season comes, they're continuing to win. So let's make it a little challenging for them. Let the offense get this boost, make those plays. Maybe the play will be 30 seconds longer than it usually is, but who cares, man? We're having fun.
Yeah. Hopefully Aaron Rodgers is playing 17 games and well beyond that. The Jets want to play about 20 this year, but speak about Tyrod Taylor. We saw him flash at practice yesterday. What does he bring to the backup position?
Oh, man, that's a guy. That guy's a veteran. I remember 2015. He was a quarterback that unfortunately kicked us out of the playoffs, right? So that's a guy that has a lot of talent, a lot of experience. He's been around the league, but he's been a starter in so many different positions, right? And that's a guy that's going to be able to come in, absorb the offense quickly, and be able to help these guys get up to speed.
We've talked about it multiple times throughout camp, but I wanted to ask you about the depth at the receiver position. I'm watching Xavier. You people at home right now are watching Aaron Rodgers warm up on an adjacent field. We got Xavier Gibson and Mike Williams who started camp.
And Sauce Gardner for that matter.
And Sauce Gardner. They're all working out to the side right now. But what about the depth here, and what's going to separate guys like the Irv Charles, who is a special teams wolf, or a Jason Brownlee who made a couple plays yesterday, or a Malik Taylor who's got that experience with the Aaron Rodgers? What's going to be the separation for these guys?
Special teams, man. It always comes down to that. The top 3 or 4 guys are going to be playing on the field without any special teams. So you got to have some way to separate yourself. If you're a special teams ace like an Irvin Charles, a guy that goes down a gunner and makes so many plays for this team, you solidify your spot on the team. Now the rest of the guys have to figure out, how can I find my way on the special teams, get into the favors of Brant Boyer. That way I can find my way onto the 53.
All right, give it to us. We want your expertise right now. The quarterbacks are warming up with the receivers. Malachi Corley, where is he at this stage of training camp? What do you see from him in terms of his growth as a route runner?
I think he's learning a lot, right? He had a few good plays. He had that touchdown. I mean, excuse me, not the touchdown, but that nice catch on the sideline, getting 2 feet in. That's an NFL play right there. The guy is finding his way to make plays where he can. And training camp is really challenging because you don't always get a lot of reps. Sometimes you're not going to get the reps that you want, the ones that you're looking for. So you have to make the most of those small reps. And he's doing a good job. He's really focusing on the small details within the routes, within the breaks, and I think he's going to continue to get better.
You know, I spoke to Malachi Corley after practice the other day, and when I asked him, like, hey, do you think that you've been able to show a little bit more, like, as a receiver, and are you happy about that? He couldn't help but smile because he said, look, he had a role at Western Kentucky. He played it very well, but he said that he felt like a little pigeonholed because he was so good at it that he had more to offer, and I think that we're seeing that as of late.
Yeah, I agree. And I think fans should read our practice report every day on NewYorkJets.com if you want to get an update on what's happening out here. But Rodgers warming up a week and a half into camp. He looks great. There's no doubt about that. And what has been really eye-popping to me, Q, he's not a guy who quickly gets out of periods. He takes a ton of reps.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he knows that he needs as many reps as possible, right? He missed a lot of the year, and he was doing a lot of the scout team stuff, which was great for him and his confidence. But I think in training camp, it's important to really go against these guys, go against the ones, the twos, just getting as many reps as possible. So because you're not playing in the preseason this year.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting because this is a game-like situation, right? And Robert Saleh said Aaron Rodgers not going to be playing in the first 2 preseason games. The third one's still up for debate. They hadn't decided last time the reporters asked about that. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Rodgers approaches today, how he approaches the Commanders practice, the Carolina Panthers joint practice in Charlotte, and then also the Giants when they come here. And it's crazy to say that kickoff is right around the corner. You have to be there for every big matchup this season with the Jets 2024 season tickets. For more information on how to purchase, call or text 800-469-5387. All right, we talked about the offensive line a little bit. For more on Morgan Moses' return, let's head back down to the field with Caroline Hendershot.
So, yeah, Ethan, as you were saying, Morgan Moses took his first snaps of training camp yesterday, and he said it felt fantastic. He felt like a 10-year-old running around on the football field. Again, it felt so good to be back out with the guys. Now, between Tyron Smith, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Morgan Moses all having a limited snap count, that was the first time that the starting 5, or what we presume to be, the starting 5 offensive players, were taking snaps together. And while everyone was worried kind of about the chemistry, Robert Saleh said, don't worry, that's not a big concern to me because the NFL is so chaotic that the odds that we have the same 5 all season long, slim to none. We gained so much experience last year that we're not just confident in the first 5. We're confident in the next 6 to 8 players. So they're good on the depth, they're good on taking those reps, and they're just going to see that combination continue to grow and gel together.
Well, you guys better watch out around the offensive line, Caroline. Great stuff, as always, because unfortunately, one of our cameramen, the offensive line, they cleaned this clock a little bit, didn't they, EA?
Yeah, Chris Ubbins had to actually be checked out after that hit the other day, but
he was blindsided. Look, that would have been a penalty.
We had to put him in the blue tent.
I think he actually did go to the blue tent, but
Ubbs is in good shape though. He passed protocol. He's back out here on the practice.
Yeah,
practice
you know, hey, it was not fair. The O-line was in pads. There he is, right there.
If we had the telestrator right now, we would circle.
Yeah, give a thumbs. Yeah!
There he is. Now, who was the specific lineman who actually took Ubbs out?
I think Carter Warren was on the sled.
Okay.
Moving back, number 68 right here. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It looks like Easy.
Okay.
Easy-E. You know, like Easy Pass was going right through the turnpike right there, right through Mr. Chris Ubbins, and we're happy to see that he's back in full force.
We've had a lot of E's out here today. Eric McMillan joining the show as well.
Eric McMillan, Eric Allen, Ethan Greenberg,
Yes.
Enunwa. Yeah, see, this is why it's been a good show, hasn't it?
It's been a great show.
Yes,
Training
sir.
Camp Live presented by Honda. We have less than 5 minutes here. Q, after watching how many practices? Like 3 or 4 now for
Just
you?
about, yeah.
What are you specifically looking for in a scrimmage from this Jets team?
That's a good question. I think they've done a good job of really working on situational football. So I think I want to see how it kind of comes all together in a scrimmage, right? They've done third downs, they've done red zone. I want to see how it comes together in a scrimmage. Now you don't have this is specifically third down period. I have to know it's third down. I have to look at the sticks. How is everybody going to react and perform?
All right, I'm coming full circle. At the beginning of the show, we showed that photograph, that fantastic photograph of Olu Fashanu and Garrett Wilson. I'm circling number 74. Ethan, you said Tyron Smith got the baseball cap on today, so that means that he's not going to practice. Olu Fashanu likely to take those first team reps. So how is he going to hold up on the outside? Likely that matchup is going to be him seeing a lot of number 11, Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah, and Will McDonald as well. Those have been the guys who have been the pass rushing specialists, at least for the Jets early on. Michael Clemens gotten a lot of run too, and like you mentioned a couple shows ago, he looks like he's in great shape, and so I'm interested to see, what he has to say when he talks to reporters for the first time here in training camp. If we can show the format of the practice or the scrimmage, put it up there. And if not, I'm just going to repeat it because this is ones versus ones in a scrimmage-like situation with 2 halves. So it's interesting because typically EA, or historically, Quincy, you played in it. This is what we're looking at. It's a mock game with 2 halves. The NFL officials on site, ones versus ones, 2 versus 2, etc. This has been historically at the stadium in the past. How do you feel like environment change from the stadium to here changes anything, if at all?
It probably won't change anything, but what I will say, though, is I did like it being at MetLife because it did create more of a game atmosphere, right? Like, this is where we play the game. It's the turf that we play at. So they're not going to get that into the first game, but I know Coach Sala knows what he's doing, and he's going to get these guys ready regardless.
But the other benefit that the Jets do have in the preseason, Q, is they will play 2 games at MetLife like they do every year. Obviously, the annual battle with the Giants, but Washington is next week. The Commander is going to be out here on the practice field for joint practices. That is Thursday. The Jets' first preseason game, gentlemen, is Saturday. I can't believe it. You know what it all means? The season is closing in. It's going to go quick now, man.
Absolutely.
And if we think it's hot here, the turf at MetLife, next week, look, I'm hoping that the weather forecast remains as is for next Saturday, but there's a lot of time between them. That's all the time we have on this show for Training Camp Live, presented by Honda. The green and white scrimmage around the corner. Again, for all your post coverage from practice, EA said it. Read the practice report.
Practice report,
Check out
baby.
NewYorkJets.com.